Hey guys, Captain Retro bringing you a somewhat official overview of my HO scale Arcade Attica shelf switcher. This is an impromptu video just made to document and show off this little shelf layout, or I guess table layout, as I am renting and can't put holes in the wall of any significant measure. It is technically a table, however, the area that it takes up is could be very easily mounted to a wall and fit under the descriptor of a shelf layout. The layout is pretty simple. It's an industry here and an industry here. This one, of course, being inspired by Reisdorf Brothers, the mill at the end of the Arcade Attica short line. This was built using a Walther's Cornerstone ADM grain elevator, and I pretty much just built it in such a way for what I needed. It's nowhere near a one-to-one representation of the Reisdorf mill, especially if you're looking at it today, as it was rebuilt and now is mostly red. However, back in the 80s, it was mostly this gray with the yellow sign. That is a sign that they had. It's not exact, but neither is the model, so it gets the point across. Along with the shelf layout here, I also have all of my Arcade Attica memorabilia, models, and everything conveniently accessible for whatever I decide to run. This is a 1.0 version of the layout. I fully intend on building a second version of this. It was made just using pretty standard papier-mâché practices, and overall took me, I think, 2 weeks to really get the basics laid down on. It was born out of two necessities, really. My test track inside of my apartment, that area got reused, so I wanted an area that was inside of my residence that I could test new model trains that I got in without going to the separated garage where my Great Northern layout is. Especially in New York winters, it's far more convenient to have something inside as opposed to being mandated to go outside just to test trains. So it was both out of that and also the fact that I wanted something that was felt more local to display the Arcade Attica engines, like this number 18, which was built by James Trains in the late 90s, actually purchased and assembled at Niagara Hobby, which is now long closed. The caboose was actually moved not too long ago. And to show off these boxcars, or ones like them, I believe this one's an AccuRail, but I might be mistaken. Pointing to the boxcar's relevance, this is meant to be a representation, although not an accurate one, of the Borden plant here in Arcade. This was the industry which was responsible for Arcade Attica having these boxcars, which was thus responsible for many, many models being made of them. This industry would ship Cremora in boxes on pallets and would use boxcars for such a thing. This is not necessarily a good representation of the industry, but if I were to accurately replicate that industry, there's no way it could feasibly be on this layout, as I don't have enough room. You can see back here, I have not finished this layout. I haven't even begun to scenic it, but that's mostly just because I have these still in box. Basically, with making new models every so often, I'm beginning to run out of space to store them, at least nearby. So I have not begun to scenic that area solely out of storage reasons, but you can see, if we zoom in on the less photogenic spots, you can see that the papier-mâché isn't well done, or at least there's still spots, but from this point of view, it doesn't look half bad, and that's kind of the point of the 1.0 layout. And you can see here that two tracks cross this little stream. I admittedly didn't even realize that there was a small stream at Reisdorf's until I recorded their trip down there for the Maple Run. and was pleasantly surprised that there was, in fact, a small river right at the beginning of the mill. However, it's nowhere near that precarious, and this admittedly was not my intention. I just figured that it would look nice to have a little stream going underneath the tracks, and coincidentally, it worked out. Likewise, the curve there's nothing realistically like prototypical about that, but with the main intention to put the mill there and to be able to sort out at least 2 cars on each track, 2 hoppers, going straight would bump into the model and also not fit 2 of the covered hoppers. So basically the curve is there out of the necessity to be able to switch a total of 4 cars at one time at this model mill. Contradictory on this side, basically the runaround here gives me enough room to do the same thing but with box cars, both 40 and 50 footers, and just like the previously noted example, technically this isn't entirely prototypical, although if I do go ahead and put a road smack dab here, it would be close. Still not quite exact. But it doesn't need to be exact, because all this is basically a diorama to display arcade and Attica themed models, as opposed to a layout that has a lot of signage regarding a railroad that was on the other side of the country. You'll also note that there's this track right here. This is for the basically municipal dock, which sits in the middle of their Y. This is to be photographed with boxcars for lumber, etc. Example of said lumber, it lines up perfectly with the dock there, and serves as a small little lumber transload area. You can see here that I've obviously switched cars around. There's 2 of the boxcars that I put together, which I have 2 of, featuring the gray doors, which are prototypical. You can also see this maintenance away Grumman truck. It's 3D printed, and one that I eventually plan on replacing. Again, I don't have a problem admitting that a lot of the stuff is 1.0 and will be replaced within time. You can see behind that there's also some custom arcade and Attica piggyback trailers, which were never a real thing, but I feel look quite nice behind the Borden plant. Those were made by an eBay user that goes by the name of Hickory Trailers. They are simply a plastic or paper sticker wrapped around your standard trucks, and they're not terribly expensive if you inquire directly to buy them. I have 3 different designs. We'll go take a look at them by going around Borden here, next to the unfinished area, and you can see I have one paired up with a tractor trailer, and that one's based off of their diesel scheme. And then of course these 2, one being kind of a pinkish faded and one being a more vibrant orange, are based off of the creamsicle boxcars. So there's not a lot to really point out about the table itself, which is why I haven't really gotten around to it, but it does get the job done for displaying my models and giving me something to do. I can easily spend about half an hour sorting through cars and that type of thing. I got a brakeman here working the switch, and that's pretty much its main draw is just the ability to sit here and switch things out for a nice duration of time. And of course this is the 112 before it was repainted, complete with the Nathan horn and the one safety light. And this is one of my many center cabs, of which I have a few more up here. 112 after it was repainted, 111 after it was repainted in 2002. Although technically, since it's the classic arcade scheme, you could also say before it was even repainted into crew cut, which is right there. But technically then this wouldn't have any trim at all, and it has the yellow trim on the handrails. I have 2 arcade plows. I have some brass buntons, which I'm working on getting 3D models made of them so I can start producing them. this was a recent project, which I was able to accomplish thanks to my friend in 3D printing. These are the three different designs for Caboose 303 behind the bank, and the one iconic one of 304, complete with a removable cupola. And I also have a 3D printed Bachmann compatible 44-ton shell for a 110 model painted in the 1959 transitional scheme between when 110 was painted like this and this. Small changes happening to kind of get it to the end game of that, which is currently at the painters, which is the other reason that I have put off showing you guys anything model related. I have a 113, I have a 113 and a 110 3D printed and crew cut on order, which I'm just waiting on. I also have one wood-built Boonton coach now in Arcade and Attica scheme, as well as the reefers, and I have two coaches, but I'm running out of room. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little snapshot at a very simplistic layout.